and gentlemen, hello and welcome to our English news edition coming to you from Canal Algérie. I'm your host, Maysa Doumaz. To the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdulmajid Tabun, congratulates the French President Emmanuel Macron on the occasion of his re-election as President of the French Republic. The Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Saïd Shengriha, on a working and inspection visit to the 5th Military Region. And demonstrations are ongoing in over 30 Moroccan cities to denounce the government's silence. Those were today's headlines. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Abdulmajid Tabun, congratulated the French President Emmanuel Macron on the occasion of his re-election as President of the French Republic, addressing him on his behalf and on behalf of the Algerian government with his warmest congratulations and best wishes in continuing his lofty mission. The President of the Republic expressed his satisfaction with the quality of personal relations characterized by trust and the developments achieved by the Algerian-French partnership, wishing that the new era will be rich in joint efforts and bilateral relations to reach all levels. The President of the Republic affirmed that the respect for the sovereignty and the balance of the interests shared by the two countries with regard to the memory, human relations, political and strategic consultations, and economic cooperation will deepen the friendship between the two countries and create a harmonious coexistence within the framework of mutual benefits. Algeria, represented by the President of the Constitutional Court, Omar Bilhaj, will participate in the activities of the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Turkey in the capital Ankara from the 25th to the 28th of April 2022. The symposium was inaugurated by the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and was attended by representatives of regional and international human rights bodies and heads of courts and constitutional councils of more than 60 countries. In the dynamics of his visit to the different military regions, the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Saïd Shengriha, carried out on Monday an inspection and working visit to the command headquarters of the 5th Military Region. The details with Leticia Sadqawi.
After the welcoming ceremony by Major General Noureddin Hambli, commander of the 5th Military Region, the Lieutenant General Saïd Shengriha, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, held a meeting with the executives of the 5th Military Region and delivered an orientation speech followed via video conference by all the units of the region, through which he valued the remarkable results obtained by the National People's Army Armed Forces in the context of the fight against terrorism. The Lieutenant General stated that he will not miss the opportunity offered to him through this visit to praise the remarkable results constantly recorded by the National People's Army in the fight against terrorism, especially following the operation of exploit carried out by the National People's Army valiant personnel in the military sector of Skikda and the 5th Military Region, which resulted in the elimination of a considerable number of terrorists and the arrest of others. He further stated that the personnel of the units involved have been able, after immense efforts deployed throughout these quality operations, and thanks to the determination, vigilance, courage, and discipline they demonstrate to locate, constantly hunt down, and corner this horde of stray criminals and traitors to the nation, and to defeat their sinister intentions aimed at undermining the safety and tranquility of the citizens. The Lieutenant General stressed that the arrested terrorists' confessions have laid bare the connivance of the terrorist organization Rashid with terrorist groups operating inside and outside the country, just as they have proved the relevance of the approach adopted by the High Command of the National People's Army. The Lieutenant General added in this context that the Algerian people followed with great interest the confessions of the arrested terrorists who acknowledged their wrongs towards the country and the people, and that these confessions unmasked the sneaky plans and visceral hatred doomed by these subversives to our country, Algeria, and their willingness to make a pact with a foreign enemy to achieve their macabre ends. That every Algerian must consciously work alongside the valiant sons of this country to thwart these conspiracies. That, on the other hand, these achievements have proved the relevance of the approach adopted by the High Command of the National People's Army in accordance with the guidelines of the President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, relating to the phenomenon of terrorism and subversive organizations. Moreover, they confirm to these subversives that the rebellion against the national community, the armed option and the use of violence to achieve narrow political objectives serve only the interests of Algeria's enemies and will always be doomed to failure. At the end of this meeting, the Lieutenant General gave a series of orientations and instructions concerning, in short, the valorization of the results obtained at the level of this military region, and the imperative to increase vigilance to face the new security challenges. Finally, he gave the floor to the cadres and personnel to express their concerns and points of view.
Among the files reviewed during the Council of Ministers, the Amizar zinc and lead mining project in Bjaya province. Algeria will launch the exploitation of this project of more than 170,000 tons annually. More details with Rania Al-Bahri.
With an annual production capacity of 270,000 tons of zinc, Algeria will proceed soon to operate one of its most important mines, that of Amizar in Bjaya province, and whose exploitable reserves of zinc and lead are estimated at 34 million tons. This important project will allow the annual production of nearly 2 million tons, including 170,000 tons of zinc concentrates and 30,000 tons of lead concentrates.
We have hydrologists, physicists, agronomists, and lawyers. My team and I will study the exploitation of the mine, the economic, technical, and especially the environmental sides.
The exploitation of this important deposit will contribute to support various industries. This project will create thousands of direct jobs and nearly 4,000 indirect ones. The opening of several processing plants for this raw material and also to replenish the reserve of the public treasury. It will also make it possible to build new basic infrastructure, in particular roads and railways. There will be environmental specialists to support the realization of this project. A project which aims to meet national zinc needs, but also to diversify exports outside of hydrocarbons.
The Family and Women Producer Fair was launched on Monday at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to expose the traditional products manufactured and made by Algerian women. This fair was organized by the Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad Minister Ramtan Amamra and the Solidarity Minister Kauthar Kriku in the presence of members of the governments and diplomatic corps accredited to Algeria. The Moroccan people are standing strong. The inhabitants of Qanitra and 30 other cities took to the streets to denounce the Makhzen's questionable practices. Morocco's economic situation is only getting worse due to a silent government. Manal Ammari has the details.
The Makhzen regime is on the edge and struggling hopelessly to face the increasing inflation, a rise in energy prices and a drop in economic growth, estimated at 0.7% for the year 2022. Moroccans once again took to the streets to express their frustration with an unsustainable social situation and a purchasing power in decline. Aziz Akhnouch's government remains silent, while Moroccan citizens are protesting throughout various cities, namely Qanitra. We reject this state of affairs and the government's unpopular anti-democratic policy. We condemn the fact that no alleviation measures for the benefit of citizens were taken, especially during the month of Ramadan. People are protesting here in Qaritara just like in 30 other Moroccan cities to oppose the anti-social measures taken by the government. The people cannot take it anymore. We would like to put an end to this deterioration in the Moroccan people's living standards. The government is starving us and now has to listen to our cry and calls for help from the streets. We want to increase our purchasing power. We demand higher wages, exemption from income tax, and higher pensions. I am jobless. The government did not do anything for us. We are only demanding our rights to live freely and with dignity in our country. We want solutions to our problems, especially for the poor people. It is an unprecedented social and economic crisis that the Makhzen regime is facing, while the repression and denial of human rights continues. All forms of fighting or resistance against the regime's policy is not tolerated and is quickly suppressed. We're protesting against repressing free voices such as those of human rights activists, journalists and teachers who were brought before justice, but also against the repression of Moroccan social rights demonstrators. A few days before May 1st, which coincides with International Labour Day, the National Secretariat of the Moroccan Labour Union decided to uphold all forms of protests on the national level to keep pressure on the government.
Emmanuel Macron was re-elected as President of the French Republic with more than 58% of the votes against Marine Le Pen with 42% of votes. More details with Najah Tayyar.
A second round of presidential election marked especially by the record of abstention rate, which reached 28%, the highest level since 1969. But the re-election of Emmanuel Macron after the second round is marked by the progression of the far right in France that crossed the line of 40% for the first time. The euphoric Marine Le Pen qualified her result as an explosive victory, claiming that this reflects the French new demand against the powerful authority at Emmanuel Macron. 8.6% of voters preferred putting a blank or an empty ballot than choosing either candidate is another signal for the new president elected. Another fact that marked this election is the rise that took place on Sunday evening in the capital, Paris, and in Rennes province. Among other issues, it could predict a strong street resistance in France. Certainly the years to come are not to be calm, acknowledged the French head of state just after this victory. Emmanuel Macron definitely has made some tension spark all along this mandate by multiplying his activities and visits across the country, qualified as arrogance to some extent by some of the French and the opposition. Yet the outgoing president is re-elected for 5 years. This time Emmanuel Macron promises that none would be left aside or neglected, calling at the same time for compassion and respect in a country full of doubts and divisions.
Internationally, the Zionist occupation forces arrested on Monday 15 Palestinians, including 2 freed prisoners. For his part, the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Hossein Ibrahim Taha, called on the international community to take urgent actions and put an end to the Zionist violations. Several American cities witnessed mass demonstrations denouncing the criminal acts of the Zionist entity in the occupied Palestinian territories. That was it for our news edition. Thanks for tuning in to our program.